This is a His Master's Voice Little Nipper Super 5 radio. Years ago I found a radio on Hard Rubbish, and it was a little His Master's Voice transistor radio, and not being in the radio at the time, I pulled the thing apart and ripped it for parts and all these sort of things. And now that I'm into radio, I regret that. So I bought this thinking it was one of those. Not that there's anything wrong with it. The Super 5 is actually a valve radio, which is even better than I thought. Probably dates from the late 50s, early 60s, named the Super 5 because there's 5 valves in it. The actual radio I was looking for, I found out later, was His Master's Voice Townsman, which I've got. Unfortunately not terribly good condition. I managed to track one down. But it's not about the Townsman we're talking about today. We're going to look at the little Super 5. Now, this thing looks like it hasn't been powered up in a good 20 years, so it's got, well, the copper over here looks to be rather, I don't know, oxidized. So I'm going to have to attack that with some steel wool. Same goes over here. Sorry. And this is the back. A piece of wire for the antenna. May replace that with something bigger. 240 volts. Looks rather dirty. A lot of this looks rather dirty. So someone left a cigarette burning on the top over here. See how that cleans up. But let's pull this sucker apart and have a look and see what's inside, shall we? Yes. Well, here it is opened up. This is the back of the radio. Looking rather dusty. Lots of dust. And to match that, look at all that layer of dust on the chassis. Looking pretty disgusting. God knows if it was even opened up ever. Got some valves there. 2 IF cans. Dead spider. Power transformer right here. Hidden down at the bottom just below the power transformer behind this valve is the audio output transformer. Got a ferrite rod for the tuning antenna. It's a model 65-54. At the bottom we got what appears to be some sort of dead insect and like a dead fluffy caterpillar. Right there. Looks like its cousin. We got, well, right next to the first dead insect. Got a couple of electrolytics. They're going to have to be changed. Got some of those Phillips or Mullard little capacitors as found in a lot of old British guitar amplifiers and occasional fuzz box. They're going to be kept because they're fine. They have to be fine. Unlike these paper and wax capacitors, which have a notorious tendency to dry up and go either open circuit or short circuit or leaky or whatever. Hunks of crap. Going to replace them with polyesters. Underside looks relatively clean apart from the, the insect corpses. Let's have a look and see what we've got over here. Yeah, let me see. Let me just turn that around. Okay. Got the valve placement. It's pretty standard for the time, what it used. What's really weird is the IF frequency is 457.5 kilohertz, or kilocycles per second as they called it then. The average IF frequency, well, standard is usually 455, but at the end of the day, who cares? Well, it's 6A and 7, whatever the hell that is. So it's triode hexode frequency converter, according to this little mini white book. Basically, from what I understand, it's the local oscillator and the frequency shifter, so it shifts the frequency up or down, well, I think down in this case, to the IF. So 6x4, is it 6x4? Yeah, that would be the rectifier valve. The 6M5 is an output pentode. The 6AV6, what is the 6AV6? Let's have a look in this book, shall we? 6AV6, just past it. It is double diode high mu triode. So this would most likely be used for the audio preamp, possibly say the detector, which is another name for the modulator, and the automatic gain control. What else have we got there? Well, the 6AV6, or the 6BA6, I'd say that would be the RF amp or the IF amp, something like that. I may be talking crap, but I'm just trying to use common sense over here. Now another thing to take note, that aforementioned power cord which goes in there. Yeah, you can see those wires, they're looking rather crusty. If moved, they will most likely crack, and that's the insulation to the active and the neutral right there, which if shorted together will probably set off the power trip in the fuse box, you know, sort of a safety precaution sort of thing, so we don't blow stuff up, or more importantly so we don't die. Oh yes, a couple little beehive trimmers just down there, right there. Helps if I actually point in the right direction, but it's hard talking and pointing and the camera and all that sort of stuff at the same time. Oh well, makes for a bit of entertainment. Oh yes, and look over there, another paper and wax capacitor. It's going to be a right pain in the backside to try and get in there. Well, there it is again. Removed all the dust, well, as much as I possibly could, reaching with a toothbrush. Gives you a better look at power transformer, audio output transformer, as suspected as well. You know, here's the wire. Look how brittle that insulation is. That was just a fire or electrocution just waiting to happen. So, in foresight, even though no one else really touches my stuff, I decided to cut off the power cord. I'm going to replace that. Also taking the front off. See over there, all the old Australian radio stations, New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, South Australia, Western Australia and Tasmania. There's no frequency readout at all, it's just got each station, some of which don't even exist anymore. Actually a lot of which don't actually exist anymore. Me being from Victoria, 3KZ in the early 90s went to FM, changed to KZFM, now is Gold 104. 3DB, I think sometime in the late 80s, early 90s, turned into 3TT, and now is called something else, I don't know, plays crap music so I don't listen to it. 3Z, 3LO, 3AR, 3XY, I think is still there, 3AK, I'm not really sure of, but anyway, this is not a history lesson about Victorian radio stations. Here's the front part, plastic, which I've cleaned up. Looking a bit shinier. We've got a bit of discoloration over here, but you know, just adds to the charm, makes it look old, because after all it is old. Here's the back, still dusty and yucky. Got to clean that up somehow without affecting that little piece of paper, because that tells me where all the valves go. Speaking of valves, let's just walk over here. Here they are. Look at that. Mullard, made in Australia. We used to have an electronics industry, believe it or not. Now what sort of industry do we have? Sweet bugger all. There we are, sweet 6AV6, 6X4, 6BA6, little Philips mini watt, also made in Australia. Let me just put that back into the camera onto that. 6A and 7. Such is life. Now these days we make nothing. We don't even gonna even have a car industry soon. Yeah. Those are the knobs. They need a bit of a clean, a bit of a buff. Let's go back over here. Just to show you as well, this is the front of the Super 5. And there's the HMV Townsman. As you can see, they look very similar, don't they? On closer inspection I find that this unit requires 0.047 microfarad capacitors. I only have one replacement, so unfortunately this project has been put on hold for the time being. I placed some on order, should be here in about, say, 2 weeks maximum. But these electrolytics I do have replacements for, but I won't do that today. I may as well do them all at once. One thing to take note of, it takes 16 microfarad 300 volt capacitors. Closest I've got 22 microfarad 350, so that'll do, but just showing you the size difference. Well, a few weeks have passed since the last scene, and I've received a whole bunch of 47 nanofarad capacitors in the mail, made by Mallory. Mallory's were quite commonly used in Fender amps and other American amplifiers of the 60s, but then I'll be replacing the wax capacitors here in this little HMV Super 5 radio. It is now approximately just after 10 to 11. My hay fever medication has kicked in. It's meant to be relatively hot. I've had 2 coffees and I think I'm ready to start work on this thing. So in the next scene you should be seeing a slightly different gut shot of this radio. Yes. Anyway, best I get started. So as you can see, I've changed the capacitors, new electrolytics, some new Mallory's. There's another yellow one. That's the old Phillips that's there. Put a new power cord. That strain relief grommet was a right pain. Just as well I wasn't being recorded while doing that. Should have heard the words that came out of my mouth. You can only guess. One thing I will say, that working on dusty equipment when suffering from hay fever isn't exactly a good idea, no matter how bored you are. But the good news is that I've finished it. Well, at least I think I've finished it. I've yet to power it up. So I'm going to put the valves back in, have my fingers crossed that there's no fire, and more importantly, hope that it works. Okay, forgot to show you that there are the old capacitors. Yucky old waxy pieces of crap, although they were great then. 50 years later, not too good. Alright, here's a radio. Plugged in, mains on. Let's turn the volume, I think that's down. Alright, power on, fingers crossed. Oh, got light. On, you can do it. Alright, little fella's warming up now. Still warming. And we're getting nothing. Zilch. Alright, looks like we've got bigger problems. Nothing looks out of place, nothing's glowing bright red. It doesn't appear so. But we have diddly squat coming out. Alright, looks like I have more work ahead of me. Here we are. Now it's working. Let's turn that down a bit. Bit of distortion. Just turned out that the socket for the rectifier was rather filthy, so I hit it with some contact cleaner, wiggled it around, hit it with more contact cleaner, wiggled it around some more, and now it's working. The way I came to the conclusion that it was something to do with the rectifier, I actually turned it upside down, measured what was on B+, and there was 0 there. So yeah, I think it was either a dead rectifier, which it wasn't, or the socket, which was a bit bluish and yucky. So I'm going to give the other sockets a bit of a clean, pop the little fella together, and looks like we'll have a working radio. It only cost me 30 bucks, a couple of hours in time, $10 worth of components. Bob's your uncle, look at that. Sweet, eh? Anyway, I'm going to pop it together, give it a bit of a clean, show it off a bit more, and then this video will be over. before I put this thing together, small word of warning. These knobs had sort of like brass caps on the side. They had probably about 50 years worth of tarnish. Decided to give it a steel wooling to get rid of some of that tarnish, and this is what you get. Yep, I can't get into those little edges over there to get rid of that extra tarnish. So now, as opposed to being aged, it looks new to crap. New crap. So in hindsight, I shouldn't have done anything, because the tarnish itself looked a whole lot better than this, which looks like it's come out of a dog's bottom. Anyway, next step, as I said, let's pop this thing back together, shall we? Well, back together and now it works.
But all the same, nobody's fooling Birmingham Bertha. She's had school in this particular Bertha. Eye for an eye, jaw for a jaw's my plan.
Remember,
just treat me fair.
Do not steal the metal parts on the knobs.
I'll become a page of 8 to you.
I might actually get some tarn off or something like that, something that just removes tarnish chemically and smells bad, as opposed to using brute force. That may sort it out. But you can't bet it, you regret it. Is he HMV Super 5 valve radio, all up and running now. Steam radio, 3CR, Saturday afternoon. I'll leave this on now, and I'm going to go. See ya.